It always amazes me. I find it incredible, actually, how certain organizations, certain teams, certain individuals in charge of certain organizations don't understand why they continue to have the same problems that they do year in and year out. And they don't understand that they are the biggest problem. With the Washington Redskins, all the talk about Shanahan, all the talk about RG3, all the crappy football the Redskins have played since 1999, the one common denominator is Daniel Snyder. He is the biggest problem in Washington. He is the biggest obstacle to that organization ever doing anything. Flat out, period, is point blank. The Chicago Bears are their own worst enemies. And they keep repeating the same mistakes over and over and over again, and then are surprised when the results are no different than what history has already taught them the results are going to be over and over and over again. Another example, but perhaps the biggest example of this would be the Dallas Cowboys. Now, I realize Cowboys fans, a lot of them love their team but get very frustrated by their team, but they sit there and love to make a lot of excuses for their team. The bottom line is the Dallas Cowboys are still a big draw in the national media sense. So sometimes the national media, I feel, is going to do what they can to make sure they protect the Cowboy brand and the Cowboy image and not go too far, not go too far all in, because that would be bad for business. And sometimes you have to remember that about the national media and the national sports media in particular. That's why sometimes when Peyton Manning over the years has deserved more critique and criticism than he's gotten from the national media, he hasn't gotten it because that's not good for business. He's a face of the brand. He's a face of the league. He equals a lot of advertising revenue, et cetera, et cetera. It's bad for business to damage the label, to damage the brand. So you're going to do what you can to protect it. It's basic business 101. You have to protect your brand. So you also have to understand that sometimes that leads to a certain types of propaganda being put out there. And the propaganda put out there about the Dallas Cowboys year in and year out is that they are a contending team. They have a chance to win the division. They have a chance to be a Super Bowl contender. It's the same cycle year in and year out. And last time I checked, my lousy ass Chicago Bears have been to a Super Bowl and an NFC Championship game much more recently than the Dallas Cowboys. Just think about that for a second. That's not good. It really isn't. But yet, the one person who represents the Dallas Cowboys above all else, the mastermind behind this myriad cycle of mediocrity in Dallas over the years, Jerry Jones, seems to think that everything's just fine and that everybody else is to blame but him. Listen up, numbnuts. It has been 18 years since your organization has been to and won a Super Bowl. What have you done since Jimmy Johnson left? Really, truly, what have you done? Everybody looks at that 95 season in the Super Bowl you won with Barry Switzer, and everybody just says, oh, he won with Jimmy Johnson's players, because that's exactly what happened. Jimmy built that monster. Jimmy built that dynasty that you eventually dismantled because of dumb dick free agent signings, dumb dick trades, and dumb dick draft decisions. Like, here's a perfect example of how stupid Jerry Jones is and how incompetent he is as a general manager. You are switching defensive schemes from a 3-4 that you have run for several years since going back to the Bill Parcells days without the personnel to run the system. You know that your defense needs to improve, so you change the scheme, and in the first round of the draft, instead of maybe trading up a few slots to go get somebody like Sheldon Richardson, who perfectly fits the 3 technique tackle position in a 4-3 that Monty Kiffin's going to want to run, and every good team that has ever run the cover 2 successfully has always had to have that penetrating 1-gap 3 technique defensive tackle that you didn't have on your roster. You decided to peel back and draft a fucking center in Travis Frederick at the end of the first round, who is viewed by most as a mid-second to third-round pick. Good general managers would have said, well, if I am in need of help on the defensive side of the football, and I am changing defensive schemes, and the talent and the value fits the need and the draft position, we probably should take that position. You could have stayed put. You could have traded down a couple slots and still gotten Sharif Floyd from Florida. Again, another guy that would have fit perfectly as that 4-3, cover 2, 3 technique, 1-gap penetrating defensive tackle. But no, this stupid fuck takes a center in the first round, then takes a tight end, then takes a wide receiver. And then the Cowboys and the Cowboy fans wonder why their defense was so goddamn awful this year. You could blame it on injuries. You could talk about this. But it's dumb dick drafting over the years by fucking Jerry Jones that makes it this way, period. You're putting in a new defensive scheme that is radically different from the 3-4 you've been running for many years, where your entire defensive personnel has been brought in and you've built around the concept of running a 3-4. Now you're going to bring in Monty Kiffin. You're going to run a cover 2, a Tampa 2 system without the Tampa 2 personnel. That makes absolutely no fucking sense. You have nothing good at safety. Your middle linebacker, who's a stud, can't stay healthy. Your defensive ends, namely DeMarcus Ware, are getting up there in age, can't stay healthy. A Hall of Fame player, yes, but it's a big conversion at that stage in time in his career to go from a 3-4 to a 4-3. It would have been an easy conversion if he had played all these years as a 4-3 end to go to being a 3-4 outside linebacker. But you're doing that and making this change in this conversion all the while without plugging in the biggest need that your defense would have had to run this scheme effectively, which was helping the interior of the defensive line, namely, again, Jerry Jones, since you don't seem to understand this, a 3-technique defensive tackle, a 1-gap penetrator who could penetrate the backfield in both the running game and the passing game. You cannot, and I emphasize again, you cannot run that Tampa 2 cover 2 system without having that presence at defensive tackle. And the fact that Jerry Jones would sit there and seem to think that that wasn't an important position to address tells you all that you need to know about his incompetence as a person when it comes to the draft and as a general manager as a whole. But he seems to be perfectly fine with it. He doesn't seem to think that he needs to give up his reins as GM and president, even though he does. The Cowboys have, a 500 record during his time as general manager? The last 3 seasons, they've won 8-8, I believe, and missed the playoffs. 3 straight years, they had a chance to make the playoffs the last game of the season and failed to do so. And you look at the last game this year. It was funny. Kyle Orton played in the national media was setting the whole narrative all week. Well, the Cowboys are going to find out just how badly they're going to miss Tony Romo. Oh, shut the fuck up. They didn't miss him at all. It was no different. It was the same fucking result. Kyle Orton played a good game, had his team in a potential situation to win the division and make the playoffs. And what did he do? Late in the fourth quarter, he threw an interception that he had no business throwing. Sounds an awful fucking lot like Tony Romo to me. So for all the national media types that tried to sit there and make excuses for Tony Romo and this Cowboys organization, fuck you. People can't possibly be this stupid where they can't see this, can they? No. Maybe I stand corrected, because there are still people that don't seem to think that Jerry Jones is the one glaring problem with this organization when he clearly is. Heading into this offseason, he must like having a puppet in Jason Garrett as a head coach, because he sure as hell is a terrible play caller, and that's another reason why the Cowboys didn't make the playoffs in 2013. It's horrendous play calling. You've got DeMarco Murray and other players at the running back position. You were a team that was able to run the ball well, especially in certain situations, but you kept going away from it because you wanted to be so goddamn Tony Romo pass happy. You're never going to get anywhere doing that. You need to protect Tony Romo, not expose Tony Romo. Give him fewer opportunities to shoot himself in the foot, and he's going to do even better. Take some of the pressure off of Tony Romo, he's going to do even better. You allow the other pieces around him to fully work, you're going to do even better. And the fact that they didn't run DeMarco Murray with the ball more absolutely astounds me. Durability concerns are not run him until his fucking legs fall off. You stupid idiots. But Jason Garrett, Bill Callahan, what a collection of brain trust of offensive awesomeness. Oh, that's right, yet another year where they've missed the playoffs. Yet Jerry Jones decides he's going to keep Jason Garrett, even though Jason Garrett obviously had to sign off on Monty Kiffin switching defensive schemes and going to that 4-3 cover 2 Tampa 2 system that they didn't have the personnel to run. Jerry Jones really likes to have that puppet Jason Garrett as his head coach because, other than the New York Jets, who else would accept 3 years of mediocrity of being 8-8 and not make it the playoffs and still keep the guy and still think he's the right man for the job? I think that's what it is. It's all about Jerry Jones protecting his very fragile ego. Nobody around him is willing to tell him, it seems like, that you don't know what the fuck you're doing. And the more you continue to act like you don't know what the fuck you're doing because you don't know what the hell you're doing, you're just going to continue to bury this once proud, great organization even farther into the abyss of your ego and non-football intelligence. That's it. Heading into this offseason, obviously, defense is a tremendous need, especially if they're going to keep Kiffin and they're going to keep this cover 2 scheme. The Dallas Cowboys need to understand that they have to have the personnel to be able to run that system. That starts on the front 4. You have to get somebody opposite DeMarcus Ware. Definitely have to get that three technique defensive tackle. If you have any illusions of wanting to run this Tampa 2 system, you have to have that. They need to get something at the free safety position. They need upgrades at the cornerback position, frankly. Morris Claiborne's been a bust so far. Oh, that's one of those guys. You wouldn't trade up for a Sheldon Richardson. You wouldn't stay put maybe and take a Sharif Floyd. Oh, but I'm going to trade up for Morris Claiborne because I got such a hard on for him. That's the type of dumb shit that Jerry Jones does. I'm going to trade down and then I'm going to take Travis Frederick because. Again, that's the type of dumb shit that Jerry Jones does. I feel bad for Cowboy fans because I could relate to you being a Bears fan, having a dumb organization make numerous dumb decisions over the years and then continuously making those same dumb decisions year after year after year. And so many of my fellow Bear fans make excuses for it and try to justify it and make it okay year after year after year. And I understand what it is. It's an unwillingness to accept reality because you don't want to accept the reality because it's too painful. But Cowboy fans, listen up once and for all. Jerry Jones is your biggest problem. Your team is mediocre. It has been mediocre for a number of years. You are one of the worst run organizations from a football standpoint, not a business standpoint, a football standpoint in the NFL today. And you're lucky to even be finishing 8-8 every year. At some point in time, the bottom is really going to fall out. Oh, they're such a talented team. If they were so talented, why did they go 8-8 every year? They're not that talented. They're not that good. No matter what anybody tries to tell you, no matter how much the national sports media tries to protect them. It is time for the heat to really be cranked up on Jerry Jones. And this will be another critical offseason for the Dallas Cowboys where he will draft the wrong people, he will sign the wrong free agents, and then come the end of the year, the Cowboys will be in position and they'll fail to come through and they'll fail to make the playoffs. And then everybody will be wondering, well, I can't wait for 2015. Let's hope he gets it right this time.